talents in both resource and giftedness has God given you as his servant, as a mother, and how are you using those? I just want us to think about our homes as these things God has given us, not things to resent, things to be bitter about, but how has God gifted you? How has God resourced you? And what are you doing with those things to bless the people in your home? Hey moms, welcome back to the Gather Moms podcast. We are so glad that you're here for our final episode in our Fix Your Face season. We are using this phrase so much that my husband just said it to me at family lunch last weekend. He kind of like put his hand up around his face where nobody else could see, and he went, "Fix your face."
Why? What was happening?
One
at
of our
family
kids
lunch?
was telling a story, and I think my face was looking like super like judgmental. And that got me so tickled that that's become part of like what we're saying is fix your face. But, I was honestly, he said it in like it was funny. And I was actually glad he did, because then I was like, ooh, why am I doing that? Because these kids are talking to me, and that's like the thing I want the most.
Right.
Is to hear from them. And
Right.
so if my face is coming off like I'm judging them or not interested in them, I want that corrected.
Yes, agreed.
So I don't want to have a bad face with my kids. So it made me think like, why can't I just listen to them?
Yeah.
Why am I dissecting what they're saying and being judgmental? Just like let it go. They're a kid.
That's right.
And so they don't have to have it all figured out at this point. Anyway.
So we do chapel at our private Christian school, and bless these kids' hearts, they're so tired. They all just want to sleep through this chapel.
Uh-huh.
And you know how when you're a speaker and you're speaking, you're like searching the audience for a face that you can connect with and feel like they're hanging with you? Well, as an adult, you feel like you have to be that face.
Yes.
So all these kids are like zoning out around me, and I'm just like trying to be so like
for the
You're
chapel
doing
speaker.
Great.
Yes.
Keep going.
Yes.
Because we're trying so hard to help the person when we're like, I'm tired too, but
Yes. No, that's very real. That's very real. And I can find myself like acting a fool, like with my head nods and my smile.
Oh, because you're just trying to like help them know I'm with you.
Yes.
You're doing great.
But our faces say so much, and our faces, I think our kids read our faces in different ways. I wonder how your kids respond to your faces, because like my oldest, Caleb, is a boy. He's a teenage boy, and he's kind of always picked up on my moods to a certain extent. But usually that's like if I'm not in a great mood, he just disappears. It's like he gets quiet and disappears, and I just don't hear from him.
Yeah.
The girls are different. The girls seem to be much more aware of my emotional state. So Lydia, the middle, who's 13 now, has always been really good at like, if she sees me being stressed or something, she'll say, "Is there anything I can do to help? Or how can I help?" Or that's how she kind of helps, is by asking what she can do. Or I'll see her get busy. Like if I'm running around trying to do a bunch of things and she can see that I'm stressed, all of a sudden she'll be in the kitchen loading the dishwasher or something, like she just picks up. Caroline is different. So the 8-year-old, what's funny about this is I always think that I never like want my kids to see me stressed, because I'm not trying to put off that kind of thing in the home, So I always feel like I'm like a duck, like, how you see the duck above water? And like their little feet are paddling underneath, but all you can see is the smooth duck on the top of the water. Like that's how I think I'm coming across. But my 8-year-old has started to say to me when she notices, she'll say, "Mom, are you okay?" So she said it to me the other day. She said, "Mom, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah. Why are you asking?" And she said, "Well, you just seem like maybe you're stressed or upset about something." And I just caught myself doing it just now. And then I had to like take a breath and like almost like check in with myself.
Like, am I okay?
Like, am I okay? Because I think even I get so disconnected from myself and like what I'm doing and everything that I don't even realize how I'm coming across, or that there is this underlying maybe like anxiety or anger or sadness or something that I'm feeling that's coming out that the kids pick up on.
Right.
But I just thought it was amazing for Caroline to say to me, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" And,
yes,
for her to ask the question.
Yes.
So here's my question for you. How does your family respond when you're not in a great mood? What do they do?
My middle is the one that picks up on it, just
Okay.
like your Lydia. Yeah,
Okay.
My middle is always the one that he can tell the quickest, and he'll either, Mom, can I do something to help? Or if it's Greg, that's like pushing me over the edge, he'll go, Dad, lay off. Or he'll like say something to like trigger Greg to be like, yo, do you see her? Which I think is so funny. That's like
great.
He's trying to help my husband know how to handle me.
Yeah. No, that's good. What does Jake do?
Well, Jake's not home anymore, and he honestly he's such a little like first kid achiever. He was always so in his stuff, trying to get his own things done, that it wasn't that he was trying to be mean. He just didn't know.
Yeah.
It didn't register.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Abby?
Abby is probably more in tune with what's going on. I think she really likes for me to be happy and be okay. Maybe same thing as Caroline.
Yeah.
So they're trying to figure out, like, did I do something? Like, I think sometimes she thinks it's her. Did I do something?
So that's interesting. And I wonder if youngest kids, if this is a similarity, because like the other day, my youngest made a bad choice. And she apologized to me and said she was upset. And she said, "I'm so sorry. I don't want to make your life harder." And I had to stop her and go, whoa, listen, I appreciate that you're thinking about other people, but you're not in charge of my emotions or how I respond to something.
Right.
The reason that you got in trouble was because, you made a choice that wasn't the best choice and you needed to have consequences for it. But you don't need to be worried about if you're upsetting me or not.
Right.
It's weird. I wonder if there's something about that youngest child that is more...
Well, the peacemaker, aren't they the peacemaker?
I thought that was the middle kid.
Oh.
I don't know, but it does seem like there's something with that younger that really doesn't like to see you unhappy.
Right. Especially at them.
Mm-hmm. It's like, did I do anything to cause this?
Yeah.
Which is just an interesting piece. Okay, so here's a question for you too. Like, do you feel like, I talked about that I probably just get on autopilot a lot and I'm maybe not checked in with how I'm feeling about things. Do you feel like that's true for you? Do you catch yourself getting into that mode?
I've gotten so much better. I feel like that's an area that I see growth in myself in, because before I would get stressed or on autopilot and have no idea that I was reacting the way I was. And now I've started to be able to catch myself. Like, it always happens in the kitchen.
Why is that? I'm picturing the kitchen too.
You start like throwing a dish around or grab that rag and you're wiping really hard on the counter. And I'll catch myself and go, oh, okay, whoa. Is this even worth being upset about? Or is there something else I can do? I think I've grown in that area. But as a young mom, oh no. Like, if Mom was going to town in the kitchen, there was something wrong in the house.
Yeah. Angry cleaning.
Yes.
There's something. And I just think, a lot of times we're just not checked in on it.
Right.
So it's a sweet blessing for a kid to go, "Are you okay?" And you go, am I okay? And then also just, for me too, it's like to check in with like, okay, wait, I am feeling stressed. What am I stressed about? Oh, I don't need to be stressed about that. Okay, I am okay. And then
Yes.
But it kind of, sometimes you just like need a minute to take that breath, to think about where you are.
And to talk yourself through it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's how women grow, is we are better talkers to ourselves the older we get. Mm-hmm. I have figured out how to talk to myself in those situations and like de-escalate versus, oh, I'm just going to get madder.
Because to your point, you can talk to yourself and escalate the whole situation.
100%.
I'm so mad at these people that aren't helping. They made this mess. They're the reason. Bloobity blob.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So much of our anxiety and stress from moms, it really does come from all that we are holding. We are holding a lot of things. There are so many things that as moms that we are managing. When we think about our children's health and keeping them dressed and keeping on a schedule and feeding people and keeping up with the home. We may have jobs outside of the home. So there's a long to-do list. So I want us to talk today about how we fix our face with our to-do list.
Okay.
And so I wanted to ask you,
oh gosh,
what is your most hated chore? Like, if you could get rid of one chore and never had to do it again, what would it be?
I've done a lot of chores today, so that's hard for me because I feel like they're all on my hated to-do list right now. And I think we have different ways we do chores in our home because I actually do a lot of it myself.
Okay.
We've tried to give our kids chores. They're just not great at them.
Yeah.
And then I just take them back.
Yeah.
And my husband is great at a lot of things, but he only gets in chore mode like once every 2 months.
Okay.
And then he throws everything away.
Great.
And it makes me mad.
Okay.
So I don't like that. So maybe that's why I'm doing the chores.
Yeah.
Because I don't want him to throw everything away.
Yeah.
I was doing laundry today, and it's so much. Mm-hmm. So I think I hate that just because of the amount. I don't mind doing my own clothes. I like my clothes. I take care of my clothes.
Yeah.
But all these people have all these other clothes.
Yeah.
So maybe laundry.
Yeah, laundry is just kind of never ending. Did we talk on the money episode about my washer and dryer? I feel like this came up recently that we have had our washer and dryer for 22 years and how proud I was that we've held on to it for that long. Well, RIP.
It died?
It died.
You just put in a new vent thing or something.
Jeremy fixed it up again, but then because it was squeaking.
Yes.
Which is, it's this terrible high-pitched squeak.
Yes.
So he fixed it again, and then literally the next day, the knob broke off, which it had done before and we'd repaired. I mean, in 22 years, you do a lot of repair on a dryer. It had broken to the point you couldn't even use pliers to like turn it to get it to turn on.
Yes.
And so we were like, this is it. We need to let her go. And so Jeremy was like, well, let's just go buy a new dryer. And I was like, listen, I love you so much, but I cannot have a washer that does not match the dryer. And he was like, are you kidding me? And I was like,
but is the washer 22 years old too?
Yes.
Well, then it's time.
I know. They're a matching set.
Yes.
And I'm like, I just can't, not have.
Yes.
It just needs to match. Can we please?
Yeah.
Right. So he came around and, can I just tell you though, what a nightmare to buy a washer and dryer in 2025, because this is going to make me sound like I'm 150, but they don't make them like they used to.
I was just going to say, you're going to buy this new one. It's not going to last 22 years.
It will not last 22 years.
It's probably going to last 4.
Absolutely, which just kind of makes your soul die a little bit.
Oh, it's terrible. I'm like, what has happened?
I even looked at the Speedy Queen things that are supposed to be like the best washer and dryer out there. And even the reviews on those are like, listen, they don't make them like they used to. It's just still not quite the same.
Yeah.
So we got as stripped down as we could.
Right.
Because one of the things they say is like it's the digital panel on all that stuff that breaks first.
Yes.
So we were able to get one that doesn't have a digital panel, blah, blah, blah. I will say the upgrade about these new bad boys is you can get larger, so it's bigger. So I usually for my own load of laundry will do 2 or 3 loads. This is a 1 load sucker.
Okay, but I'm telling you right now, you don't want to do 1 load.
Well, okay, but
because in our 1 load washer, it does great, but when you put the 1 load dryer, it's so heavy, it starts to break down the motor.
Okay, that's a good thing to keep in mind.
So we've run our motor out once already.
Okay, see, that's good. Okay, this is good.
I'm telling you, they try and sell you with these like make it easier things.
Okay, because this whole thing does fit in this dryer. I'm like, this is okay.
But it's a lot of clothes.
It's a lot of clothes. It's a lot of clothes.
Yes.
So here's the deal. This is going to sound ridiculous because I'm basically down to only doing my own laundry in my house.
See, y'all have a better chore plan going on in the Henderson
But
house.
I still hate doing my own laundry. I still procrastinate it. I'll still press refresh on the dryer 5 times. And then I'll take it out and fold it or like lay it. And it still takes me another 24 hours to put it on hangers. Mm-hmm. Like, why do we prolong
it is
the laundry thing?
Yes.
It's
terrible. Yes.
We just stretch it out when, Jeremy does his own laundry and it's seriously 1 and done in 2 hours. He's got that sucker done,
Oh, Greg wins in our house. His laundry is never ending. It has never been fully put up or washed. It is always somewhere in the in-between. So
does he do his own laundry?
if he does, it's like a shirt. Because he's like, I need this one shirt for tomorrow. He doesn't think to add other things to the one shirt. No.
Okay, I will say the one huge downside to these high efficiency washer things, you can't put one shirt in it.
No.
Because I almost took it back. Because if you put one shirt in it, it starts jumping. Because there's no balance.
There's no balance.
And it's this, how they've created these stupid things.
Yes.
So you can't wash one shirt.
You should wait till you put a load of towels in and like somehow they get moved around in there so that they're all on one side and it won't finish washing.
Yes.
And then you have to go in and you have to rearrange. Oh. Smarter is not better.
Smarter is not better.
No.
Give me dumb and old.
Dumb and old. That is our motto. Yes, girl.
We need to start an appliance store called Dumb and Old.
Yes, Dumb and Old. I would shop there. And old fridges. I want an old fridge. I want an old washer dryer.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so here's the deal. No matter how much we wish we didn't have all these things to do or manage, we do. And for many of us, I mean, this is kind of the gut punch, but it's the things we're complaining about are actually the very things we asked God for, right? We're worn out with all we had to do for our children, but these are the children we asked God for. We complain about laundry and cooking and cleaning, but we ask for God to provide us with clothes and food and a house. So here we are. We complain about working outside of the home or being at home all the time, and yet this is the answer to our prayer for God to provide for us. And so just as we consider all that we hold as moms in our to-dos, I have some encouragement for us. So I have 3 things that I want to share. The first is this, that we would steward well the gifts that God has given each of us. So we had a guest preacher at our church recently, Pastor Joby Martin, and he was speaking to our volunteer teams about serving and how God has given us each giftedness to serve and how we use those things. And he preached out of Matthew 25, and it's called the Parable of the Talents. So if you remember that story, the master comes and he gives to one person, he gives 5 talents. To the other person, he gives 2 talents. And to another person, he gives 1 talent. And he goes away. And when he comes back, the first person that he gave 5 talents invested that and made 5 more. To the person that he gave 2, they were able to make 2 more. And so now they have 4. So the first person now has 10. The second person now has 4. The last person that was given the 1 talent, they took that and didn't do anything with it. They just went and buried it in the ground. And so when the master comes back to say, what did you do with what I've given you? The servant says, well, I knew you to be a hard man, and I was afraid. And so I buried my talent and didn't use it. And so here I'm going to give it back to you. And the master says, go away from me.
You wicked servant.
You wicked servant. And to the other 2, he says, well done, good and faithful servant. Mm-hmm. And so to the group that Pastor Martin was preaching to, he was talking about using our gifts in service to the church. But I could not, as I was sitting there, I could not stop thinking about moms. Because I think a lot of times it's easier for us to think in the mindset of the gifts God has given us, how we steward those at work, in ministry, at church. I think that's a lot of the times how we think of things. But this directly applies to our motherhood. What talents in both resource and giftedness has God given you as his servant, as a mother, and how are you using those? Because I think for some of us, we've been given certain gifts, and instead of using those, instead of seeing God as faithful, we are afraid and we squander, and we might bury the things instead of using them for the glory of God. Mm-hmm. So, like, I thought about you, and I thought about how in some of the ways that God has gifted you in so many ways, but the 2 that came to mind for me most for you immediately was creativity and encouragement.
Thank you.
And I see you using those outside of your home, but I see you using them inside of your home first, because I see that he's gifted you with this like creative spirit. So you make things for your home. You do. You do. You make things for your home. You've made it a place where your people feel at home. It's a warm place. You create things for holidays. You create things, for costumes and decoration, and you do. You're creative.
Yes, let's look at all those phases of creativity.
And then I think encouragement, and you're so faithful to use encouragement outside of your home, but I see you using it first inside of your home. You encourage your people. You encourage your husband. You encourage your children. They hear encouragement from you. And so I feel like if the master came and gave you 2 talents that you said, okay, got it.
Yeah.
And you used those and you've invested those. So that has multiplied where he would look at you and say, well done, good and faithful servant.
Well, I think that's interesting because so many times you hear about kids with parents that are ministers just being so against the church and God because they probably saw their parents using their giftedness outside the church, but always being too tired to do it at home. And I think for moms, I think that plays into what we do, that sometimes we're so busy helping people outside our house, we're too tired to do it at home. But isn't that where we should be doing it first?
I get asked by moms for coaching and mentorship and stuff like that sometimes. And, they'll say to me, hey, I love what you're doing. I love, they're maybe wanting to be able to speak or teach or something like that. And, one of the hardest things I have to say to them is, are you being faithful where God has you right now? Are you being faithful to use the gifting that God has given you right now? If he has gifted you to teach the Bible, are you doing that in places he has put you right now? If he has given you the gift of strategic leadership, are you using that in the places you are right now? Because I think that is the parable of the servant and the master, that he is looking to you and he is saying, I'm giving you these talents. How are you going to use them right now? And when we are faithful in stewarding those gifts well in the place he has given us, then he multiplies that, because he actually says this at the end of that parable. He says this to the servants: for to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. And so I just want us to think about our homes as these things God has given us, not things to resent, things to be bitter about, but how has God gifted you? How has God resourced you? And what are you doing with those things to bless the people in your home?
Well, I was thinking too, like for the servant that didn't do anything with his talent, it almost took more effort not to do it than to do it. And so it feels like if we're not giving our best in our home, it's almost taking more effort to be mundane or discouraging or like create chaos than to just do the good thing God's already given you to do.
Yeah, and there is, to be fair to that servant, there is a component of fear of, what if I fail at this? What if I'm not good at this? What if I try something and it doesn't work out? That there's a piece of fear. I think what we would just say in response to that is God is faithful. And so maybe it's for you, maybe considering being a stay-at-home mom. What if right now you are looking at the talents and resources you have and you feel like God is calling you to be a stay-at-home mom and use those gifts and resources for the family in your home, and you may be looking at that and saying, I'm scared. I'm scared of what that would look like for me. I'm scared that it may not be fulfilling enough. Sis, what if that's what he is calling you to do? Steward that well. And the opposite is true. What if he's calling you to go outside of your home? What if he's asking you to work outside of your home? You also don't need to be afraid of that. The talent and the resource he is using for you, he has given you, use those inside your home. If he is ready to multiply that, then go and use those outside of your home as well, while not neglecting, your first ministry.
Yeah. And the seasons change. So it's funny that you think as a mom, you should get better at things the older you get. But sometimes you got to go back home for a while to figure out the areas that do need growth, because you were growing really well in one area, but not another one. And so I think sometimes you kind of look at your life as like, well, it's always going to get bigger and better. Well, no, not always. Sometimes it shrinks a little bit Because God has something new to teach you, or he's building in you a new talent that you're going to use for another season.
I think we have both seen that be true in our lives. And we could both tell tales of how there were times when God asks us to pull back, to cut away,
Right.
to be quiet for a season so that he could do something in us for the next time.
Right.
One of the things somebody asked me when I turned 40, is there anything you're afraid of? And I cried, and I think this is still true for me, is I'm afraid of not being brave. And so there's a piece for me that it's like, I feel this parable very strongly of what has God planted? Have I been faithful?
Mm-hmm.
Am I stewarding well the gifts he has given me? Are there any areas in which I'm not doing what I'm called to do because I'm scared? I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid it won't go well. So I think there's a really, just real piece to that. And I would just say, however, in whatever way God has blessed you, and I want to say this in both gifting, so whatever your spiritual gifts may be, whether it's encouragement or hospitality or teaching or leadership, whatever your gifts are, and then in your resourcing. So in the home he's given you, in the children he's given you, in the way he's provided for you, how are you using those talents for the glory of God? Are you burying those things and see them begrudgingly, or are you using those things in order to provide increase for your family?
Well, and I would say which I know you very well, but maybe not everybody has, the same, they don't get to sit by you in the podcast chairs. You are brave. You've always been brave. And even though it's like you're not trying to like make people think you're something you're not, I think there's a part of stewardship where you do it anyway. Mm. So even if you don't feel 100% brave, you do it anyway.
That's right.
Because you know that by doing it, there's a part that'll catch up. Mm-hmm. So if nothing else, you model for other people. You do it anyway. Mm. Even if you're not quite sure, you trust that God's going to fill in the gaps.
That's
so you
right.
just go for it.
That's right.
So you've done that.
Yeah. Well, that's really kind. Yeah, I think there are things that, we've gone after and it's like, ooh, this feels scary. But, I think even for me, having a third child felt scary.
Well, and when people say they're having a third kid, I just say it is scary. So I can't tell you anything different.
There are things that are scary, and we could even consider our children as these talents. I think that's an interesting way to think of it too, of, like if he's given you 3, what are you doing with those 3? If he's given you 2, what are you doing with those 2? If he's given you 1, what are you doing? How are you stewarding what God has given you?
Yes.
Because he wants to multiply and bless in abundance, and he wants to see how you'll be faithful with what he's already given.
Right.
So that's the first thing, is just in our to-do list that we would steward well what God has gifted us with, what he's given us. Number 2, and this is always the one for me that I'm chasing to continue to get better at, is releasing what isn't helping accomplish the mission. So the question is, what have you put in the non-negotiable column that is actually negotiable? What are you, when you look at your to-do list and you're feeling overwhelmed, what is on that list that you in your mind have said, I have to do this thing, and it's actually not a have to? I mean, when I get my most anxious and stressed, I start putting things on the list like paint all the doors in the house.
Not on my list. Clean all the baseboards. Nope, not on my list.
I mean, completely clean out every closet in the house. We just get these, and especially for me around holidays, and the reason this is on this list is because it came up again with my counselor around the holidays, because I was talking about having family come and all these things I'm doing, and she just looked at me and she said, what have you put as non-negotiable that's actually extremely negotiable?
Yes.
That can actually just be taken off the list.
Well, but that's not bad either, in the sense that for some of us, we don't put anything on the list. And so there's a piece there too that I hate to use the word lazy, but that you're not even trying.
Okay.
Because you're like, well, it doesn't really matter. And it actually does. There are things that do matter.
Okay, so you need to have some non-negotiables. So I think about Jesus. And this comes from my counselor too. She used this illustration. She said, think about Jesus. He had non-negotiables. So we do need to have those.
We need to, yes.
There have to be things. For Jesus, there were some clear non-negotiables, okay? There was like, he is going to preach the gospel. He is going to heal the sick. He is going to cast out demons. He is going to train up disciples. Like, there were some things for him that was like, these things will get done. You think about all the things that he could have also held in his hands. He could have felt responsible for housing these people. He could have felt responsible for feeding them. He could have felt responsible for clothing them. Like, those could have been on his to-do list. But interestingly, we don't see that as things he was holding.
Right.
As his responsibilities, which I just find fascinating.
Well, and that's where you want his wisdom. Like, how did you know? What were the things you have to hold, and what were the things you have to let go? Which I do think God will tell us. If we ask him, I think he will tell us.
Yes.
We're just so quick to like use our own limited perspective to go, yeah, but I think it all matters. So, but it doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, what if you've got, these people waiting by Gethsemane to hear the gospel, and Jesus says, actually, I have to go shopping, or there's a birthday party I need to throw, or an event I have to get to, or I need to post to my social. Like, we hear that and we're like, well, that's ludicrous.
Yes.
But, and I'm not trying to say that any of those things are bad. They're certainly not bad. But I think we can get very distracted and overwhelmed by our to-do lists that don't line up with our mission. And so we have put so many things in the non-negotiable column that are actually entirely negotiable or optional. So I just think it would be good for us as moms, very healthy to consider, what are my non-negotiables?
That's good. I agree.
What are my non-negotiables? And think about, like, I've heard it said too, if you know what your yes is, it makes your no's a lot easier.
For sure.
And so we have to have a clear best yes. What are we saying yes to? What are the things that are non-negotiable? Because that helps us let everything else go.
I agree.
Okay, the next one, and this is one we're always working on together, this is I'm sorry, I had 4 things. I think I said 3 earlier.
Look at you. We were
we're
like, almost number 3. Let's go.
Number 3 is equip others to help with the work. So if we consider Jesus again, I want you to think about how many times he has the disciples help. He does. He sends them out to get food. Mm-hmm. He sends them out to get a place to stay. He sends them out ahead of him. There was a time then, even after they had been with him a few months watching him, then he tells the 12, okay, now you're going to go out and do the work.
Yes.
He actually got them to a place where they were ready and he could replicate himself in them. He sent them out to do what he was doing. And so I think that's good for us. I think for moms, we have to keep in mind that our job as moms is to work ourselves out of a job. And that can be hard because there's something sweet, and you've brought this up before, and maybe you could expound on this, but there is a nice part of being needed.
Yes, that's why I still fill their water bottles, and I wash their clothes, and I hang Judd's t-shirts so they don't get wrinkled, and I find Abby shoes. I like to help. I like to help them. And I guess I'm expecting them to know how to do it one day, but sometimes I don't let them.
Yeah. And, because I think that's a very common mom thing is we like to do things for them. And there is something about we like to be needed.
Yes.
And especially you kind of fall into that Enneagram 2 helper category. And so for you especially, there's a really big piece there where you get a payoff from you being the helper.
Yes. Like when I'm parked outside the school, exactly when Judd walks out the door and he doesn't have to wait. I'm like, #winning. I was here.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And see, I get very little juice from that.
I love it. When he walks out and he calls and he's like, Mom, are you here? I'm like, look straight ahead. There's the minivan.
That's cute.
Makes me feel good.
That's cute. So contrastingly, my kids know, like Lydia gets out of school at 3:30 and I'm like, I will be there at 3:45.
Yes.
Because I am not going to sit. Now I'm real happy if I actually get there at 3:45. I feel like a good mom.
Yes.
But I think that's real cute that you're actually there.
I'm ready.
On time.
Because I want to beat the traffic. I want to be the first one out of the parking lot.
Okay.
So I don't want to be, because sometimes when you wait longer, the traffic gets worse.
Yeah.
So
no, if I hit 3:45, everybody else has already skirted out of there, and I just get to like pull right in.
Okay.
Okay, the point is, I think we have to ask ourselves, what am I doing that someone else could do? Because we really do need to be creating children that are raising up children that are responsible, fully functioning adults someday. Research shows that kids who participate in household chores from a young age have better student success and success in careers and personal relationships. So a really well-known study found that the best predictor of young adult success in their mid-20s was whether they started participating in household tasks at age 3 or 4. So by contrast, kids who didn't start participating in household chores until they were much older were less successful as adults.
Well, dang it. That might be a problem.
Your kids are doing stuff. I've seen Judd out there mowing the lawn. They're doing stuff. Funny. But I think a good question to ask is, what am I doing that they could do themselves? So if you have a kid that you're dressing themselves, but they, if they're 5 or 6, they can dress themselves. So, they need to be dressing themselves. Could a kid take on a meal? This is something that I have talked to my kids about, and we've gotten closer. But like in my mind, there's this beautiful vision of like Caleb does spaghetti, Lydia does, they each have a meal that they know how to make,
right?
And I can plug and play those bad boys of like, okay, you're Tuesday, you're Thursday,
yes,
that a kid's owning a meal.
I would rather them own cleanup.
Okay,
I'll cook it.
Fine.
Can you just?
Yes.
They don't load the dishwasher right.
Well, listen, you've got your own issues. You have chosen the pain you're in.
I have.
So,
I am so efficient. I wish it was an Olympic sport. I can fit more in your dishwasher than anybody else in America.
We should compete.
We should.
We really should. We should have like this huge thing and see who could get it
all in. That would be amazing.
And then it come out clean.
Listen, today's show, if you would like to have Kate and I on from Gather Moms, we will do a race on today's show.
It would be super fun.
Loading the dishwasher. And I think it would be a hit.
Yeah. Because Jeremy goes to start it and I'm like, absolutely not. There's still dishes sitting here. I could get it.
I can make it fit.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even stuff like, if you're wanting to do family discipleship and you're kind of like not knowing where to start, kind of struggling up against it. Listen, Mom, what if you let your kids have some responsibility in that and they took turns helping to lead those on a Sunday night, So what if you just have a book and you say, okay, hey, you're doing the devotional next time, read this ahead of time. What if you put that in the hands of a kid who, there may be a kid who does not like it and it's not their thing and they just read it and you're done and you walk away. What if you put that in the hands of a kid that flourishes and they find that they have a gift of teaching and that they got to start doing that in their home? I just think we do so many things for them a lot of times because it's easier on us just to do it ourselves and because we don't want to deal with them and their pushback and everything. But I think there is a place where we're depriving them of an ability to grow because we're doing too much for them. And if Jesus did that with the disciples and he was the model for how we raise up people, then we need to follow his lead.
Agreed.
And my final one, so 4, is that we would work with purpose and thankfulness. I thought about what you taught at our last Gather Moms. Gather Moms. That's how the proper people say it. At Gather Moms. At our event, you talked about Jesus embracing his purpose with joy. That it wasn't just about, surviving and getting through the pain, but that he really embraced it with joy. And you read this scripture, and so I'm going to read it here because I think this applies so beautifully to motherhood in a way I hadn't thought about before you taught it. So it says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely. So I just think about the non-essentials, that we lay some of those aside.
Yes.
And let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, that we each have a race that we've been given as moms, looking to Jesus, so that we find our strength there, and that we model after him, because it says, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. And then it says this, consider him who endured from sinners and such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. How do you think we as moms can embrace motherhood with, purpose and joy instead of just surviving?
I think honestly, sometimes it takes getting that first kid out the door to look back and go, man, I had it so good,
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't go back and fix that. But I think there is a beautiful second chance God gives you sometimes. Maybe that's why grandparenting is so amazing. I'm not there yet. But that, we've got our head down. We're pushing so hard to win some race. I don't even know what race it is. And then you look up and it's gone and you're like, oh, I did like making dinner. I did like finding their shoes. I did. That was worth it. Every single second was worth it. And so sometimes we get too distracted with purposes outside of what our unique gifting is, which is being this kid's mom. And we're trying to impress or, make it to the next rung of the ladder or have a bank account overflowing. And just like the Bible says, we're not taking any of that with us one day. But I sure enough am going to see my babies in heaven. So that's what's most important.
Yeah, I think, there are so many things that we can do. But in those things, other people could potentially do them. The thing that someone else can never do is be your child's mom. Mm-hmm. And you have a unique opportunity. You have, God has given you this child. He has created this purpose for you. And so I think we want to steward that with purpose and with joy and with gratitude. There are days that are hard, and there are days where it's really hard to see the joy in it. When the oven breaks and the kid is sick and the husband's out of town for work and, everything can go wrong. And I'm not trying to minimize any of that. That it is all very hard, and the days are long. But then I guess the other side of that is that the years are short. And so when you think back on the years that you get with your children, how do you want to remember them? How do you want to remember how you approached your to-do list and the things that needed to get done? And so if we could find joy in that, if we could fix our face in the things that have to get done around our house, could we steward well what God has put before us? Could we offload the things that need to get offloaded? And then could we ask God to give us joy in the work, that we wouldn't just survive, but that we would thrive in this mission of motherhood? We love you, moms. We're going to take a little break from the Gather Moms podcast, but we will be back soon. We love you, moms.
See you next time.